If you listen to the show, you already know that we cannot exist without our sponsors. They are the ones who make things happen behind the scenes. So let's acknowledge Fuji Sports. We've been working with these guys for a while now, not only as far as this podcast is concerned, but also at the RŌL Academy. We've had their gear. I personally use their gis. What a phenomenal product.
Yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu, judo, MMA, tape, bags, anything you need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Let's talk RŌL TV. There's so much content on there. It's ridiculous at this point. But I think what is even more intriguing, as time went on during the project, we've been recording most of the events that were taking place here at RŌL Academy. At this point, I mean, we have guys like Chris Howder, Armin Fati, Rafael Lovato Sr., and Pete the Greek. I mean, there are so many different events that we've kind of recorded it. Don't you think that's amazing? I mean, points of reflection and kind of going back for all the students to see what really happened and refresh their memory.
Yeah, I think it's great, you know, being able to go back and look at all these high-level practitioners, Octavio Cudo, like one of the names you didn't mention. And I mean, just these guys that have been doing this for so long come in, teach these amazing seminars and workshops, and it's all recorded and there for you to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get additional savings on all this, type in code RŌL Radio at the coupon and get additional 30% off of your membership.
Nice. Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. Today's guest is a third-degree BJJ black belt. He's trained for a number of years at American Top Team and has coached and cornered some of the fighters in the top promotions in MMA, as well as the IBJJF and ADCC. Malachy Friedman joins us to discuss his opinions on gi versus no-gi, why certain people feel the need to train combat sports, how to continue being engaged in jiu-jitsu while injured, and a ton more. Here's the RŌL Radio with founder of Black Label Martial Arts, creator of Mad Lab BJJ, and third-degree BJJ black belt under Master Ricardo Liborio, Malachy Friedman.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live.
Here we go. You look nervous over there.
Well, you know, this is like the second time we're doing this on this platform, and it's slightly different than what we are used to. So
Yeah.
we used to live a different direction. The cameras were different, and now it's kind of... So anyway, I am a little nervous, especially we have an awesome guest today. But
Yeah.
Thank
Don't
you.
want to embarrass yourself.
well, you know, that... Well, I think we've been done this like 160 sometimes, so embarrassment point is gone at this point.
Well, as long as we're recording, that's all that matters.
Life is good. Life is good. How are you, by the way?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I got hit by a truck, and I wasn't on the mats yesterday, so I know it's not that. But we'll see. Ask me again in a few hours when,
Are you
when
cranky?
class
Is
starts.
that what it is?
I'm always cranky. We
I
know
know.
that. That's
Yeah.
not an issue or anything new. All right. Ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Professor, thank you for joining us today.
Oh,
And first of all, we were kind of making jokes, but I love the green screen. You like, this is a professional thing.
At some point, it's going to be. As soon as I can, I have a million fires that I'm kindling. Some are bigger than others. This one, I'm still trying to learn how to do VMix, do all these different things, and get something where I can talk a little bit more often to people. But it's hard, man. All this stuff is hard.
Believe me, out of all people I do, ask Gary. I have literally 70 projects at the same time. And the moment I close one, new one pops up. It's there's a mess inside there. There's a mess inside my head. But I think I'm really, first of all, I'm really excited for this conversation. Your story is very unique. And you do have, you know, large presence online, and there is a lot of followers that embrace what you do, and you are a big fan of jiu-jitsu. Would you find yourself as a big fan of jiu-jitsu, as a big supporter, as a big a person who embraces this?
So I would say I've fallen off a little bit in my viewership of live jiu-jitsu. So like jiu-jitsu matches. Of course I'll be ready for the next ADCC. I'll be interested in what's going on with some super fights, but it's been a lot of the same names going against the same guys over and over again. And I'm also a little bit particular that I like gi. So it's a lot of no-gi going on, and I don't mind watching no-gi. Some of my favorite stuff is in the gi, and I like to see really good practitioners face other really good practitioners in the gi. And with like a lot of the promotions like Berkut, Absolute Berkut, Copa Podia, all those kind of things kind of going away, you don't get the super fights that you were getting. So I wouldn't say I've fallen in my love of it, but it's definitely decreased my viewership.
Why do you think, before we get into the real part of the conversation, actually you spark an interesting point here, right? In the last 5 years, I feel like the no-gi is gaining a large popularity, and there are some outspoken individuals. We don't even have to drop any names. Right. Everybody knows who they are. But listen, it feels like there is this, how do I put this politically correct? This intent to almost like remove the gi, like the gi is better and cooler. What's your thoughts on this?
I think a lot of it has to do with the people that are involved in it. So one thing that IBJJF did was that they disqualified Marigali versus when he was going to go against Pena.
Oh, that was a big deal, right?
Right. I mean, that's the finals, right? Yeah. So you have these kind of guys like Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones. I mean, even guys like Brazilians like Wagner, or who can, in no gi, you can be a bad boy. You can be pissed off. You can talk trash. Like the whole Andre Galvao versus, Gordon Ryan. I think sold that event for the most part. I mean, like, because most times the ADCC like super fight is always boring. I mean, it's just it's two heavyweights usually that won the absolute, and it's like a passing of the guard each time. It's like, okay, Cyborg wins, okay, Drysdale wins, okay, then now this guy. And I think you have like Andre, who he's not boring, but if anybody else would have won, like it wouldn't have been interesting to watch Andre fight, anybody but Gordon Ryan. Mm-hmm. And I think the viewership when they put stuff like that, and I think that they go, okay, gi's a martial art, and there has to be budo, there has to be respect, there has to be, all these things. But I think that, you can make an event where people are themselves and they don't have to like pretend to be somebody, but they can really be honest with who they are. Like the whole Crone Gracie versus, can't remember, I want to say Victor Estima. This was about 2014. They had a real beef going on because Victor did the baby, after he beat Crone. Yep. And then Crone made fun of him afterwards, because then he beat him a year later at this, like, I want to say it's a Gracie thing. They had some kind of thing. It was great. And, you got to see a rivalry. You got to see two people that didn't like each other and face each other. Caio Terra and Bruno Malfacini. Those two guys hate each other. Oh, you know what I'm saying? If you set up a match between Bruno and Caio and you built it well, you're going to have the viewership, because most people do gi, right? Mm-hmm. That's where they start. Most schools teach gi. If you're in a Gracie Baja, if you're in an Alliance, if you're, there's some schools now popping up that are primarily no gi, but most schools, and I think most people watching these events have some experience in the gi, so I don't know why they're changing the tone, but it doesn't make sense to me all the way.
Well, but it's interesting conversation. It is an interesting topic, because you're right. Majority of people, I think percentage-wise, if we took it around the world, the gi would be the primary focus, even though no gi is growing. but there was really not many NoGi only places to train.
Right.
Like 10 Planet is probably the primary one, or the most
Right.
popular one, but there was not that many. At the same time,
yeah.
the NoGi is the more popular.
Yeah, I can tell you from working the phones that the calls that come in,
to the academy, I mean?
Yeah, a large portion now. The question is, do you guys have NoGi?
Yeah.
Right out of the box. So,
Yeah, so
it's, you know,
so I have a good experience with this, right? So I make all my fighters fight in the gi, right? So all my MMA fighters, I trained at Top Team for, when I was healthy to my neck surgery. It was for 4 years before my neck surgery, and I could go with like these names that I could name out, very very tough NoGi guys that ADCC, top 3 a medalist, and I would go fast with them and they would scramble and go fast with me. And that's where I could survive. Like, so I was self-taught mostly, but just being around in big rooms with big names, you get better.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do the gi until I injured my neck. But there were some guys that I couldn't understand why they were able to beat me the way they beat me. And so when I go back and I think about it, so like I'll tell a quick story. So I never say any names anyways, just so you guys know. I'll say names about other stuff, but not in training. And then so one or two different ADCC medalists I can think of I've done very well with every time I rolled with. Then there was a guy, and now I can say this guy's name because he beat me up. Marcus Aurelio, yeah. So you can say this. You can say the guy who you can talk about the guy beating you. You can't talk about you doing well with somebody else.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Marcus Aurelio had just beat Gomi, right? Had just submitted Gomi in Pride. That was a huge upset, but he wouldn't submit me. Like, it would be 5 minutes, and he wouldn't submit me, but he would slowly pass my guard, slowly get to the side control, and I could re-guard. He slowly could do this over and over again. And let's say we partnered up for maybe 2 rounds or 3 rounds in a row. Sometimes we often traded with different people, but sometimes you stay with the same person, just because you're getting a good roll, or you want to feel what it feels like to try to figure that person out each round. So we go 3 5-minute rounds, and then he would get the side control. Then he'd get to mount, and I would get escape. Now he's, and I couldn't figure out why he was able to do that to me. The way he was able to do that to me was because he was beating me by inches. And NoGi doesn't, maybe now it does, but NoGi never really taught how to control somebody and beat them inch by inch by inch by inch. Like, so when you slow the game down so slow that everything is done by it takes longer than everything else. You slow it down. The person who's better, has more understanding of control, is going to win, right? So I'm trying to make things happen, like moving my body fast, and they're slowly taking a little bit more property, of my body. They're getting a little bit higher up on my thigh, with their knee and the half guard.
Yeah.
And then slowly they're passing my guard. And I really found that kind of control in the gi. Like, so my top game got insanely good doing gi, because I started making grips and stuff like that. And then you take away the grips, you're like, oh, well, you don't have those grips. It's like, yeah, but your skin pretty much is the same thing. I'm not going to grab your skin, but I'm going to hook my fingers in a certain way that I'm pulling up on the bone, or I'm pulling up on a tendon. I'm going to find something that's similar to that grip and control. And I really found that controls in the gi. And I really wish I would have not skipped the gi like I did. But the biggest thing was, I didn't want it. When I first started this, I did it because I wanted to fight. And I didn't want to put a gi on because that looked like karate. And I thought karate was stupid. Yep. And this was like 1999, 2000, 2001, where karate was being pretty much made fun of. I remember Nas and Jay-Z had a beef on the on the rap, and Nas called Jay-Z a Taibo ho, because he taking karate classes, because there was a picture of Jay-Z learning karate from somebody, and I was like, oh, I can't even, like, he's making fun of him because he's in the karate gi.
What are they gonna say about me? Yeah.
And then remember Seinfeld?
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, he's a huge fan of Seinfeld. Yeah.
So Kramer, when he goes and he's training with the kids,
yeah,
right. So he's training with. Then there was The Office, where his Dwight was getting his black belt. So these are like real things that were like made fun of. Even from Martin, the TV show Martin, when they had like the crazy karate guy. Yeah. So.
But half of our listeners don't even know what you're talking about. These shows are like 3 decades old.
Yeah. So I'm trying to tell these guys like it was viewed so fun, like at such a funny position that I didn't want to do it, and I regret it. And I also didn't know. Then when I had the chance to do it, I didn't know how to tie my belt. So these are like real things that are like
oh yeah.
That's why I never yell at anybody who can't tie their belt. Anybody that walks up to me in the white belt line and has their belt like around their waist or their hand or around their neck, I don't be like I'm not like this old traditional, like, hey, turn away from me, tie your belt. It's like, man, these guys are already putting a lot of themselves out there.
Yeah.
And now they're uncomfortable wearing this gi. Trust me, they're uncomfortable because they don't know how it fits them. Stupid. It doesn't look right. The belt doesn't tie correctly. Maybe they're a fatter dude and the A4 belt doesn't fit them perfectly. And it's kind of like at the tips. It's not easy to put on a wardrobe and where you feel stupid and then go out there and not be like some instructor's like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not being like this, you're not tying your belt correctly, you're not showing me respect. Shut up. This guy is barely on the mat. He willed himself to sign up, buy a gi, and get on the mat. He doesn't need a professor to tell him all the things he's doing wrong.
And I think you touch on something extremely important. And I want to go back to the gi versus no gi in a moment. But getting into the academy and stepping on the mat, I think it's intimidating enough where all these other things just layer on top of it. So like here and now, we talked about to so many people about this on the show. It's creating a safe and just easy entry for people, for students onto the mat is so important, right? Yeah. Just the intimidation factor of coming into the room where you clearly don't know what you're doing. You're going to be wrong. You're going to be embarrassed and all the other things. And then now you have this instructor who wears the black belt and, he's yelling at you or telling you that you do this is, it's just such a recipe for a disaster. It's crazy. Yeah. You talk about no-gi and transition to gi. Do you think that this is one of the reasons why a lot of wrestlers have a hard time engaging and making that switch? Like there's a lot of individuals that we at least see who wrestled in high school. Some of them even wrestled in college. And then at that point, from a wrestling perspective, that ends. There's like, I don't know, 0.5% of them who can coach. But outside of that, it just ends, right? And then they are like, oh, there's this jiu-jitsu thing. Let me go in, and then that conversion into jiu-jitsu.
I'll tell you this. Hard. The guys that are the best wrestlers that I've seen that come to me that are the best wrestlers, D1 wrestlers, All-Americans, right? Mm-hmm. The best guys do the gi. The only guys that don't do the gi are wrestlers that either just wrestled in high school or had some minor wrestling, like maybe they did something at a junior college or something like that. Like most of the guys that come over that are like just beasts put the gi on. And I think that's because they're so used to dominating people in no-gi anyways, or that they'll go into no-gi and they'll just thrash this person, right? And the gi slows that down. It then puts them in a different place. Yep. I have this one guy that I hope he comes back soon. He's away on deployment named Matt Kyler, and he only did gi, and he was a beast. I mean, he's a Division I All-American, and he came out there and he just like he's hell to deal with in the gi, but the gi gives everybody else a chance, at least a chance with higher, like, blue, purple, they're able to at least put him in danger here and there or hold him in positions. And I think those guys, they dig the gi because they're leveling themselves up and they're trying to figure it out. And they know that it's a balance there. If you want me to wrestle with you, I'm going to lose.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation with one of my students who's been training, I think, for 2-3 years, somewhere there. And he used to wrestle quite a bit, and he came in and he started the gi journey, if you will, and just recently he came up to me and was like, listen, I remember, and he says that to me, and he goes, I remember when you gave me this advice, stop wrestling and learn jiu-jitsu. Really put thought into jiu-jitsu, not wrestling. Put your skills aside. And he goes, now, after a couple years, I can literally flip the switch where I can wrestle or I can do jiu-jitsu. And when I combine them, I can see all these opportunities, different skills. I mean, that's where the power comes in, right?
That's the fun thing, like that. I coached mixed martial arts. I still coach mixed martial arts, but I coached it at a higher level with some bigger names.
Yep.
But like my whole thing is jiu-jitsu for MMA, which is usually being on top, and cage work. And the cage work, getting to study wrestling and then getting to know how jiu-jitsu is on the wall. So like having my jiu-jitsu and having my, my learned wrestling, it really changed the way I coach, the cage wall, like Russian ties, different things like that. And it kind of changes the way that you look at a lot of different positions. You see something like a Russian tie that's so dangerous in wrestling, but not many people are using the Russian tie in grappling. And I'm looking at it like, okay, well, if I can get to head control, right? If I can get the north-south top control, and if I can't get around, can I get to a Russian tie? Like, can I turn that underhook into a Russian tie? And then I can use the Russian tie to get to the back. So there's a lot of cool things. I mean, wrestling was here way before jiu-jitsu. And I believe that a lot of wrestling and judo kind of mixed to make what judo is and would make what wrestling is. And we're kind of caught, like, you see every so often something that's very, very simple from wrestling become used in jiu-jitsu all the time. Like, remember when the funk roll became really popular? Like everybody was, and that's like something that is basic. It's in a John Smith DVD if you want to find it,
Right. No, and I think that open mind is really what is a part of the recipe to success, right? Not necessarily closing the doors of saying, oh, this is wrestling, I'm never going to use it. This is judo, I'm never going to use it. Having the diversity of different styles and understanding how they work based on the circumstances that we have. This is really what jiu-jitsu is all about, right? I mean, just troubleshooting, fixing things, right? I mean, this is what we do every single day. Let's reach back all the way to the beginning. Come on, little history path here, right? Do you remember the very first day that you started jiu-jitsu? You stepped on the mats?
I remember something. My friend was a blue belt, and he had beat me pretty handily for the past couple months. Like upstairs, living room wrestling. Like we used to wrestle and fight in the front yard of a house that we rented, and so he would choke me out there, and then I was like, you gotta show me what you're doing, and we ended up grappling a whole bunch. And then I kind of remember going into the wrestling area. It was like a bunch of mats on like on a workout area, dance floor, or whatever they use that area for, like the Zumba area. And I remember doing pretty good. Like I did okay, and I did because I had a body for it. Like that's the thing. Like some people are natural, like I could hold my own weight up by my arms. I could do a lot of things. So I was like, you taught me a guillotine. I was hitting a bunch of guillotines. But I remember coming on the mat and they were doing gi, and I was like, I don't want to do gi. And they're like, okay, well, I'll take the jacket off. And I took the jacket off, and we grappled. And maybe some people beat me. Maybe I guillotined or triangled some people, but it wasn't like, I don't have a clear remembrance of it. It was sometime in 2001 or 2000. Yeah, 2001, I would say. The end, maybe towards the end of that year.
So if you were doing good,
yeah,
it seems like there was a confidence level there. That like it's like this is not demolished. I'm not getting demolished. I'm not getting killed. Why
Some
do you
people
continue?
were demolishing me.
Okay, so what was the pivot point convincing you to actually get?
Because I knew that there was other guys that I didn't understand what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there was Jedi stuff in the background, and then there was your average Joe aggression person who was they have maybe they're a white belt, they've been doing it for 3-4 months, and I've also been cheating by getting my butt kicked for the past 4 months upstairs every day. You know what I mean? So I've been training for 4 months already coming in.
Yeah.
And and it's almost like one-on-one privates with a blue belt. And at that time, blue belt was like I think
a big deal.
I was about to
big
say,
deal.
like a blue belt was like I remember I don't remember running into a brown belt or like a black belt student for years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the truth. There was nobody really that was I could even think of that like had it like. So of course I just trained, and some of them I beat and they got upset, and some of them I beat or I lost to, and it was, you know, like I liked being rough, so I was used to being submitted already. So I think it was that I got off to a good start, and then I was like, well, I want to be an MMA fighter. That was like the immediate thing that hit me. Like right after that, I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to fight. So I'm going to a jiu-jitsu school and I'm grappling, but I know I want to fight. So I didn't stick with that school too long. I ended up moving into an MMA gym, like that was maybe 3 hours away from me. I lived in the rafters, like a loft in the rafters, and I worked at Walmart from like 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then I had to train like 7 hours a day. It was insane. Like my body was just breaking apart. Everything was being destroyed.
Hold on a second. Walk me through all this, because you're talking about this is what, 2001, 2003, somewhere there, right?
2000, yeah, I would say this is 2002 or 2003 now. Yeah.
So UFC is barely like getting off the ground. The fighting thing is not even popular. The tough, what was it? Tough one was 2005, right? 2006. Yeah. So like the popularity of MMA or UFC as we know it, it's non-existent at that point. This is a baby steps, right? They're just getting this started. And you're talking, you want to be pro MMA fighter?
So I saw live. I mean, I've watched, UFC fights before, and none of it really like caught my attention. Like Mark Coleman, like you'd buy like the tapes, it'd be Mark Coleman, or it'd be like, and like for me that was boring. I was watching Mark Coleman, like he's humping some dude, hitting him with his head, headbutting him. You know what I mean? Like I have much more respect for it now that I know how much I know as a fighter. But like I'm like, this is I don't want to watch this. But I watched Robbie Lawler start.
Oh Lord,
yeah.
I don't know if it was UFC. Like 39.5, 39.5 or something like that. Right? It was when Chuck Liddell fought Vitor Belfort on ESPN.
Yeah. I mean, those are the days, I think, that when it really took a turn. Like even, that's what set up Tough, right? I think.
Yeah.
It was that era of fighters really changed
everything. Tito and and the whole Randy Couture thing was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it started blowing up, and I think Ken fought Tito. That was like that era, like Ken Shamrock came back and fought Tito.
All good times, man. I forgot about all of this. I forgot about 37.5. I just looked it up. As good as it gets.
Yes.
All good times in UFC. So you want to be you want to be a fighter. Like your objective at that point is to learn jiu-jitsu for this to be your profession. How old are you here? How old are you at that point? Like, what are we talking about here? This is late teens? Are you in your 20s yet?
So 19, 20. I'm around that age.
Oh, yeah. You conquering you conquering world at that point, right?
Right. I thought I was the shit. I thought I was going to come out there and like I'm already making things up in my head. I think I'm already like
I was the same way.
I got my own walkout music, and I'm like,
you don't know who you're fighting, but you got walkout music.
Yeah, I got walkout music, and I already have, you know, it's so stupid because I probably take it too hard on some of the kids in the gym, but I was a real moron myself. I got to remember how stupid I was sometimes. You know, your brain's not fully developed yet.
No, I know myself. I say this publicly and I tell all my students, like when I was a white belt, I was the biggest jerk in the world. Like I was not a good training partner. I'll admit it. But we all learn, right? We go through this, right? And it's it is a big learning curve for a lot of us, you know, even though the beginnings are not always so rosy, not always so beautiful, you know. Oftentimes many consider mat as an equalizer in a sense of either you're going to shape yourself to become a good person, good training partner, and you're going to stick around, or you probably won't stick around, and it kind of you'll find your own pathway.
Here's the thing that happens. I think there's a lot of sleepers around there. These people that get humbled, and they have to be humbled because they can't beat you up.
Yep.
And then they stick around for 5, 6, 7 years, and then they become that asshole again. It's almost like it intensifies their sleeping, like their sleeping tendencies of who they are. And it's like, oh, now you can beat everybody up. Now you're just going to be the same asshole you were before.
Yeah,
you know, so it's like
I think you're going to bring up Drysdale. It magnifies the person you
magnifies.
are. So if you're a good person, it's going to magnify that. If you're an asshole, it's going to magnify that.
Yeah,
so, I'm glad that my thought was somehow already thought before by Drysdale. Yeah, that's good for me. Because here I am just shooting shit out my ass. I'm just like, okay, like, this is from what I see. Everybody's like, and all the schools are like, no, it makes you become a better person. No, don't listen to that.
Well, it's
no. If you were an asshole, you're a bigger asshole.
Yeah, I remember I was at a party and I was doing, I was taking kung fu at the time, and it was a kickboxing school too.
He was a shit.
I was not, but I was at this party and there was this guy that was talking about wherever he went. I don't remember. And he was talking about how he loves just effing people up. And I was just like, this guy's such a tool. And I had that thought back then. This is over 30 years ago. I was like, you know, maybe it doesn't make you, it doesn't have any magical powers, right? This guy's an asshole and he's going to be an asshole for a long time.
When I was 19, I loved violence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 40 years old. I still love violence. I don't know what it is. There's an aggressive part of me that always lives there. I'm not sure if it was always there, but it was curated around 15, 16, 17. And I just now know who can take that violence. You know, like I know that there's certain people I can show that to, and they're welcoming of it, you know, because they live in that area as well, that mind space that they can go to as well. And then there's some people that, you know, it's I have to, you know, civilize and I'm not like I'm always a violent person every single moment of the day, but you know, like I teach my kids classes. I love teaching my kids classes. There's some kids in there that I love so much that, you know, like, and you couldn't find a violent part of me in that.
Mm-hmm.
But we move on into the MMA, we move into the other stuff where I'm working with different people, and you kind of like shift and you move through different, you know, personalities of who you are. So,
well, what do they say that the dangerous one is the one who can control when to progress and regress, right? The one who can choose when to be offensive, when to be defensive, is not the one who is wild all the time and is completely uncontrolled. And I think a lot of this is visible in any martial art, but in jiu-jitsu particularly, right? So what do you think? So you mentioned this quote unquote violence and this physical approach to life early on in your teens. What is sourcing all this? Like where is this coming from?
I would say being nervous, being scared of not accepted, being like so all those things that normal people go through, right? And then, of course, and I always stuck up for myself. So like there was times like I got jumped in school, like for sticking up for somebody else and getting jumped in school, or there were certain times, and each time like, and then I found alcohol. So of course I started drinking in high school, so that helped me be a little bit tougher, like more guarded. Oh, yeah. But what happened is a funny situation. Was I was kind of already being aggressive, getting into fights and stuff like that, trying to like with the nerves, like the butterflies, the scared, like that would kind of destroy me, and I wanted to fight against all of that, like the butterflies and stuff. I was like, when that stuff happened, I hated it so much. Why I felt that way,
So was the fighting part or the aggression part kind of a shield to protect yourself?
It was taught to me. The aggression part was taught to me, so good friends Matt and Chris. So that's all I'd say, because I'll tell them I mentioned them in one of these things. So I got jumped at a party, and I remember my friend Chris, before I even met Chris, started fighting the guys with me at the time it's happening. And he was like a super tough guy. I mean, like he was a maniac. He was getting in fights all the time. This stuff was happening, like, and basically he ran all these guys out the house. Like, everybody's like jumping out windows and stuff. And I remember becoming good friends with closer with his brother, who's closer to my age. They're both about 2 or 3 years older than me. And then the guys that jumped me, we would drive around looking for parties, right? And if we heard that the guy that jumped me or one of the guys that fought me was at a party, and this is scary stuff because I'm not exactly that person yet. I'm not that, like I haven't turned into whatever. We would drive around. Do you know what West Side Connection is? Mm-hmm. The Ice Cube something. Oh yeah, yeah. And
okay.
Yeah. So we would listen to like some of the worst rap music that gets you like super like ignorant, and we would show up to the party immediately looking to fight him. And we would fight him. We would fight people every single time. We just go into the party and immediately within 3 minutes, the person was either running out the door, like taking off, or it was an immediate fight with somebody else that was a party of that group that jumped me. And this went on for probably 16, 17 weeks in a row.
Wow.
Like, yeah, no, it was revenge. It was full on. It was like, now you're going to get them. You're going to get these guys. And I'm like butterflies the whole time, trying to drink away some of my butterflies. And because I'm just not used to that. But it was constantly thrust into the fight constantly, like, no, we're going to get them. You're going to get them. And I like these guys. These guys are fun to be around. They hang out. I look up to them kind of like as an older brother type figure, and we're going to get revenge, or we're going to get even, on these guys every single time. So if any time we hear where they are, we're going to come after them. We did that for a long time.
So what happened that it stopped? What happened that it shifted?
I guess we started getting into fights with other people.
Whoever was around when you couldn't find them.
Yeah, it started becoming. Yeah, it just started becoming like so used to getting into that. So like almost every party ended with a fight. It felt like, and we weren't necessarily the good guys or the bad guys in every fight, but there was a fight every single time because there was always some kind of problem. And the people looking to adjust the problem are the ones that are going to get it first.
Sure. You can't put yourself in that mindset for a half an hour driving to a party and then be like, oh, well, they're not here. We're not going to do anything with it. You got to get it out, right?
So if one of my friends got into an argument or popped off and they were getting into a fight and there was more than one person being involved, you're involved already. Boom, you're already in it. And so it just happens so much. so often that it became like, I don't know, just a part of me. It was just weird. Go ahead.
So how is this changing the moment you step on a mat?
It didn't change for a bit.
So this aggression continues even though you are on the mat?
So the jiu-jitsu the aggression isn't there as much as it became too easy to not too easy against the people I was going against. Like, so let's say the people I'm going against, I'm just rolling around, grappling, having fun. There's no aggression there. There's no like me. I'm angry. I'm like I'm in meditation mode, thinking of what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? Like I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like even in MMA fighters, it's very hard to become angry when you're doing stuff because you're thinking so much of the things you're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. You know, that your brain's taking over more of the emotion than the emotion can. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I would get into like, we still have like people like would like want to fight you or want to challenge you, or like, you know, they hear you're doing jiu-jitsu or something like that. And like, they'll want to, so like, I just remember like that part was, yeah, that was aggressive. I remember people like, I'm like throwing them in triangles, guillotining them. I mean, this is also during drinking heavily too. I didn't stop drinking until I moved to Oregon. And that was like when I was 20.
What year is this?
So I'm 20, turning 21.
Okay. So you're training jiu-jitsu at that point?
I'm training jiu-jitsu, yeah, at that point. And I just stopped. We drank a bunch. I ended up getting in a fight downtown Oregon and getting hit with a crowbar and shattered my orbital bone. I just stopped drinking after that. I don't know. It was, and I would drink maybe once every 3 months, something like that. But why? Yeah, I don't drink anymore.
Have you thought why? Have you thought why that event caused such a drastic change in your life? I mean,
because I was so in love with training. I love training, right? And I loved just rolling, doing jiu-jitsu, doing anything, and then I get cracked in the eye. And at this time, I'm going to the late Robert Follis, right? Mm-hmm. He was the head coach of, he was the head coach at Extreme Couture mm-hmm. for a while, and then he passed away. Mm-hmm. I remember wanting to go in, and I had like my eye shot was blood. I had like my all blood in my eye. And he's like, "No, you can't go on the mats." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. Like it doesn't hurt." And he's like, "No, you can't." And I remember just doing the Randy Couture workout, which got me huge. If you can figure out what Randy Couture's workout was, anybody who wants to do that, that thing got me friggin' huge. I'd never been big in my life, but I'm drinking like, you know, the old lady drinks that they like insure. Because I can't chew. I can't chew.
Gary is familiar.
Yeah, I've moved into that demographic recently.
Yeah, because they cracked my jaw a little bit, right? So I had a little bit of a broken jaw. It wasn't bad, but I couldn't eat like chewy food. Like, so meat was out of the question. I could eat fish, but I didn't know how to cook fish. And I was drinking a bunch of Ensure and doing Randy Couture's workout, and I went from like 145 pounds, like shit talking little kid, to like 185 pounds. I was like, okay, well, that changed a lot of things, but it was it was me not being able to train. And I hated that, you know. And
what is so, I don't want to use word addicting, but so magneting, or what pulls us so much into the training? Why is this? And we see this everywhere. I mean, at least I do with my students. Yeah. They start it starts with a curiosity. They might have a goal, but they are curious, and you sprinkle a little bit. They take it. They go on. They move more, and then they are just submerged in jiu-jitsu, and they can't get out of it. And it's not a bad thing, but what is the one thing that pulls us in so bad?
I think it's that there's something that you constantly get better. And so like, I haven't been able to really roll in the past 2.5, 3 years. Like I should, because I had a back surgery. I have 2 neck surgeries. things go on, things go off. I'll train a little bit, then it'll go out. I'm trying to I'm right now. We'll talk about my my recovery stuff that I'm going through later, but it's like a video. So I try to tell people, listen, jiu-jitsu is like a video game. You're going to start off with a pack of nothing, and all you can do is jump, and you're going to have to like smack like rodents in the swamp. Yeah, like you're just like popping like little rodents. That's what's getting your power up, right? So like you're losing, you're not doing anything, but then all of a sudden you have like enough money to get like an old sword, you know, and then you have your old sword, and then you're like, that works sometimes, you know, or it kills you. But you're getting better, and you're now all of a sudden you have enough money for like a gauntlet or armor, and you can stay in the fight longer with that old stupid sword. You know, so like I think of that like you have guard retention and a really bad triangle. Yeah. You know what I mean? So now you have a little bit of guard retention, a little bit of a bad triangle, and now we figured out the arm bar. The arm bar is not great, but it's there. And then as you get better, you keep going through your inventory, and the triangle is still a triangle, but a year from now, that triangle is going to be better than the triangle was. Yeah. So now it's like a sword, but it's like, okay, now this is a long sword, you know, made of steel, you know, like sharpened, you know, double-sided blade. And you're like, okay, well now that triangle's good. And now maybe some of your armor's better. You're not wearing like a leather, like, you know, like how in some of the video games you wear leather. Like that's the leather helm. Like what the hell? That's just going to keep your brain inside the leather if you get smacked with that. So then you get like a helmet and stuff. So that's how I think about it, is that you're starting with this video game and you can play whatever character you want. So you don't have to be the longsword guy. You can be the crossbow guy, you know, so you don't have to focus all your attention on the crossbow. You have to have a longsword. You have to know how to use it. But you can really specialize in the crossbow and spend all your time getting better arrows, better bows or whatever, fibers or whatever. And you can be a spider guard player. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that's your spider guard. You're from long distance and you're shooting attacks. And I think of that like we have a necessary need to learn, right, as human beings. And then so our jobs, a lot of times we learn our job and a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't learn anything new from their job. Like they know their job, that's their job, and there's nothing else to it now. So there's no longer growth there. And then they go home and you get some kind of entertainment from TV because things are changing. New episodes come on, you know, like next episode will give you something new, but that's not learning as much as that's like engorging entertainment, right? Which is still great to do.
There's no stimulation, right? Yeah.
So the fact that you can learn something and then you can get a triangle for your first time ever and be like, holy shit, I got a triangle. I submitted it to somebody. And then go on to submitting somebody that you didn't think you would be able to submit. Like you would, like, you know, that was beating you all the time. That's the trick of it, is that it just constantly gets better. It constantly gets better because if you stick with it, you'll submit more people, you'll use more tricks, you'll have more tools, you can change what you want to do. Like I've done so many different things with my jiu-jitsu that I've focused on so many different games. So after my back injury, I lost hooks to my feet, like my dorsiflexion. So like if you put my toes would just like go like this. So that's not great for a De La Riva hook. Right?
No, not really.
No, but so I'm now playing way more. I'm drilling so that when I do come back to training, I'm going to be playing a lot more spider guard, you know? And that's the thing, is that I've changed so many different times. I had to go from MMA to gi and learn all the gi stuff to half guard when everybody was playing half guard. Like everybody was fighting from their knees, to now everybody's standing and passing, right? To learning, okay, now I have a really great De La Riva, but I can't invert anymore. So everything has to stay inside this. It changes so many times. I mean, it just depends. Some people that don't have injuries or have very, very minor injuries, you're very lucky because you can play as many things as you want to
Well, but I'll challenge that because we do get older. So even if you don't have injuries, like
Right.
if you look at injury as an obstacle, right? You might not be injured, but you might have other limitations, right? So
Yeah.
like age is one of them. Like we might start later in our life, or we just age out. We are on the mat for 20 years or 30 years, whatever it is, and you can't play like. My ego inside my head is so big sometimes that is ridiculous. Like like acknowledging the fact that I cannot do what I did 20 years ago. It is so important, and that allows us to have that evolution and continue growing. Yeah.
Well, you can't be ignorant to yourself,
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can't say like I'm like I used to be this. I'm not as much of that as I used to be. Mm-hmm. So I have to do something else. Like otherwise we would be the guy that says like, yeah, I can still, like I can still take the back, like jumping to the back like a crazy person, like I can still do these crazy. No, I can't. I want to do that. Yeah. Maybe I could do it. Maybe it might pop out there. Maybe, but it's not going to be the same as it was. So being honest with ourselves and saying like, and it's almost like we have to like come out to our training partners and be like, I can't do that. I can't invert. You know what I mean? Like when you inverted all the damn time, be like, well, I don't do that anymore. And then you got some other guy saying like, inversion has nothing to do with your spine. Well, it does when somebody's fucking doing the right thing to defend it. Right?
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
I can invert every single time against a wall, but put that wall into putting pressure and trying to put pressure, load me up. I don't care how good at jiu-jitsu you are. Your spine's going to take some bend to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wear and tear is a real thing. And unfortunately, we don't see it until we are later in our life. It is what it is. You talked about your injuries a bit. How is the recovery going?
So I've had 3 spine surgeries. The recovery now is going much better. Like, so last year I found a good physical therapist, and of course my insurance is a real jerk, and they think that I need to spend $5,000 before I can get physical therapy. So once I rush my $5,000 out of my family, getting everything done that we need to ever get done, and then I get my physical therapy, I'm getting stronger. So last time I was really strong. I have a couple more issues than before, like some weakness in my shoulder and some like same things with my legs. But I've been I've been really being like clear on what kind of medicines I'm using or stuff I'm using to help and aid recovery. So I work out with my physical therapist. I drill probably a pretty good 10 to 15 minutes. And then sometimes I'll roll, just certain positions. So like I'll play spider guard. And if they get past my spider guard, they win, or I'm going to pass. And if I pass their guard, I win. So there's no scrambles, right? Cause scrambles are the things that are like twist your spine and injure you. Mm-hmm. I know this is going to sound like a promotion, and it is a promotion, but it's something that has actually worked for me is the bioprotein technology stuff. I know it's like, it seems like and I'll usually call bullshit on most things, like most CBD. There's been like a CBD or 2 that worked on pain relief in my lower back, like the muscles. But I've noticed with the bioprotein and my physical therapy, I've gotten better, like where it would have usually taken me 3 to 4 weeks, it's taken me now like a week to get back to recovery.
Well, good for you. I mean, that, being healthy, especially with what we do, is so important.
Can you guys hear that?
Is that a dog?
Yeah, my dog is having dreams. Hey, Layla.
Oh yeah.
Layla, wake up.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a Catahoula.
I have a half Catahoula, half Old English.
Yeah.
We think that Catahoula is the crazy part. Am I right?
Yep, that's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, my dog's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's all right.
I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't hear think it's something weird going on in the background.
No, I know that sound. I knew it was a dog right away.
Yeah.
All right.
Heather Woods has a Catahoula. One of our other guests.
So what's your thought on, injury or recovering? I mean, there is no secret that jiu-jitsu is a physical contact sport. No matter how, call it gentle sport, call it self-defense, whatever it is, we are engaging in a physical conflict, and we are trying to solve this mechanically. And then we do apply different pressures and directions, which our body is not meant to bend that way. I mean, that's jiu-jitsu itself, right? So injuries, even though we often talk about the fact of, take care of yourself, wear and tear is real, all these things do happen, even though injuries are not intentional for most cases, we do have the wear and tear and things happen. What are your thoughts for those who, are at the beginning of the journey? You've been on the mat for 20 years. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
So a lot of my injuries came from me not stopping training during injuries. Also, so people that are cutting weight a lot in tournaments, if you guys are cutting weight so many times and you're training through these weight cuts, you guys got to be careful. You don't realize how much your spine needs the water that's in there. Like, those discs that are filled with fluid become decreased when you're weight cutting. And so if you're training really hard, like that's what happened to me, is that I kept cutting weight because my fights would keep falling out, and I would get rebooked on a show next weekend, and another fight would fall out and I'd get rebooked. So I I'm staying at 175 pounds when I'm normally 189 pounds, and I'm dehydrated and I'm not resting my body. And, so be careful with your hydration. If you're doing all these opens and you're cutting weight constantly and you're training on it, you can injure all different kind of things, but your spine is really, really, really at risk because of the dehydration, because the discs will be small. And then, so listening to your body, rolling the right way, not rolling through things sometimes could be very, very hard, but I would try to say, try to keep rolling, try to keep training, try to figure out how to do something in a different way, right? Like at every single injury I've ever had, I've gotten better at jiu-jitsu or fighting, because
it made you stronger. You grew after. Is that what you're saying?
No, I study like hell.
Right. Oh,
or I do something that I go, well, I can't use my hand, right? My hand's twisted up. I can't use my wrist, right? Yeah. So I'm playing lasso, and I have to play, the other hand has to either be grabbing a foot or something like that, because if I grab a sleeve, he's going to twist my hand or something like that, and kind of playing different ways and trying to figure out drill. Like I go into a mad rush. So if I have an injury, I watch all the classes, I take notes, but then before anybody was probably watching instructionals, I was watching instructionals. I'm watching instructionals. I'm writing notes down to myself. I'm in my head. I'm drilling them on the mat. Listen, people ask me all the time, like, hey, can I just do the drilling? I'm like, I would love it if you just did the drilling. I'd rather you be in here working, drilling, learning the technique, drilling the technique, and then saying, hey, I can't roll, rather than being like, well, I can't roll, so I didn't come.
Well, let me ask you just flat out, because what you were describing, and I 100% agree with you. That conversation takes place between me and my students every time that topic comes up. Yet 90% of students choose not to do that. They will choose, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a week. I'm going to take 2. I'm going to take 3. Yeah. And then I want to come back. But I need 1 more week. And then literally you don't see them for 6, 8, 10 weeks. And a lot of them don't return at all. Why?
They didn't have the hunger. Fuck. Listen, there's very few people out there, I think, that truly are obsessed. So the people that are obsessed, and sometimes people are obsessed only for a moment, you know what I mean? Like they want it so bad, and then they realize that there's something else that they're going to be obsessed over. there's very few people that are, so like my I wouldn't say my competitiveness, it was always, I didn't want anybody ever to get anywhere close to me, like in skill, in knowledge, in anything. So the time that I'm taking off, I know that it's affecting me, my rolling, but really it's not. It's like rolling sometimes is the thing that messes everything up. Like rolling sometimes erases all of the class that you just went to. It becomes a wipe. And then let's say you beat this guy, you beat somebody, like you beat somebody with a triangle. Like it was a good match back and forth, but you didn't look at, you're like, oh, good, I got a triangle, I beat him. But you didn't say, well, this guy passed my guard. Two of my submissions didn't work.
Yeah.
Then I, like I almost got my back taken, and then I got my guard back and I triangled him, so I won. And you don't look at all the things that happened in your match that you need to work on. Like this guy just exposed a ton of stuff on you. So I guess when I got to a level where I was pretty good at jiu-jitsu, is that when it was like an insult to pass my guard. Like I don't care if I submitted you 3 times in that roll. If you passed my guard one time, that was eating me alive in my head. I was like, what did I do wrong? Where did I make this mistake? What did I do? I'm thinking about this kind of stuff. And maybe just some people aren't competitive like that, where you go out and you go, well, okay, now I'm out. Now what can I do to get better? What should I do right now? Well, I should be learning leg locks. Like.
Well, in some sense, first of all, this is so important to anybody who's listening to this, because in some sense, this might be a consequence of our lives, the way how they are structured today. I mean, everything is hyper focused on the result. Everything is hyper focused on the end, which in jiu-jitsu, that's the submission, but it that's not how we get there, right? So like what you're describing is studying. You describing education of yourself, or for yourself. Like you're trying to get better, you're trying to improve, and the submission will come. But when we focus on the goal, the shiny object at the end, we're not focusing on the process, and this is where we're not getting better, right?
Yeah, those are all the notes in between. You need, like you need the percussion. You need these things going in order for it to be a complete song, a complete track. And if you're only looking for like, if you're just the guy banging cymbals all the time, like it's you're missing the point of being efficient, and you're missing the point of jiu-jitsu is about efficiency. How little work I do to the result I get, you know, and sometimes I put myself in a more of a workload situation. Sometimes but when I need to, I can always put myself in a less workload situation. So because I put myself there so many times.
Yeah, we had Chris Burns recently on the show, and he actually called jiu-jitsu is you're finding a way to cheat the system. You're finding how can I make you work, and I'm going to do the least amount of work, and I still win, right? So like these are different analogies, but the recipe is almost the same every single time. It's we need to find a way to troubleshoot the situations we find ourselves in. So, all right. Well, I'm glad you're doing better. I mean, this is, I love the way how you approach jiu-jitsu. I think fundamentally this is gold for many out there, especially with the oversaturation of information that we have today available on our phones. And I think, I personally think that places like BJJ Fanatics has fundamentally changed the way how we learn jiu-jitsu. I mean, this is a good thing, but at the same time, the consequence is the oversaturation of info.
Right. And it's hard to know what you're going to pick up from each place. And this is not me because I'm a little name shooting at big names. Just because somebody's a world champion doesn't mean they're going to be coming out with a world champion type DVD, right? Or instructional. Like a lot of times I look through these guys' stuff and I'm like, this is not good. This is just, like this is just, maybe it's good for a white belt if they've never seen this before, but this is nothing new. This is nothing. There's no like parts of this that have even been looked at further. Like this is very, 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 like if I can learn something, if I learn one thing that I'll use forever, it's worth $100.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
One thing forever worth $100. But the fact that there's so many things that you don't learn from certain instructionals or you don't get from certain people. Did you know that there is, so you know what if you're a rapper, right? You know what a ghostwriter is? Or like if you do books, if you write books, there's a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
People are ghostwriting for other people's instructionals.
No kidding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're going to somebody and they're going like, hey, cook up I'm going to put my name on this.
Yeah.
I'll pay you this.
I'll pay you X percentage and you just write up the whole curriculum for me and I'm going to go and shoot it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what we didn't mention, and Gary and I, we talked about this very often, that not every world champion is a phenomenal instructor. Matter of fact, some of them are actually, pretty bad. Like
we just had a workshop here that was a phenomenal instructor who has won very little, right? He's like, if you're looking at me and looking for my medals, you're not going to find many. Yeah. He said it flat out. But then an hour and a half later, everybody was like, that was amazing.
Ability to teach is a very, very different skill.
Who is very, very good at his instructionals are very, very good. And I should just say this just because, because he's a world champion and like, I'm not sure. I don't subscribe to any of his stuff, but Kyotera has some amazing stuff out there.
Yeah.
Like, he's an instructor and I don't know Kyle. I know I'm more for my master's Liborio and he's good friends with Bruno. So me saying anything nice about Kyo, is just purely on my own. And like Jake McKenzie, God, he's so good. So you got, there's these guys out there and there's some people that are brilliant. And then there's some people that are overly verbose.
Yep. Oh yeah.
No,
absolutely. Teaching is a skill on its own. Presentation and how you verbalize it, what you say, when you say it, how you present it, how much you talk, how little you talk, how much. It's a madness of its own, especially if it's on video. So that ability, it's unique, and not all of them mastered it, unfortunately. And it's hopefully they will continue changing. As these platforms continue growing and opportunities present themselves. So it's what it is.
The guy who's not great at teaching can still teach. He just has to do it in a different way. Yeah. Like there's been some of the best guys that I've trained with that have shown me little tiny things that they're doing. Like, oh, I did this. And I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. They're not going to ever be able to explain it the way that they showed it. They did it to me, but I'm going to be able to teach that later. And generally when I teach that stuff, I and there's no name for it, I name it after the person that showed me it. So I'll say like, this is the like Marcelo. There's like 3 things I call Marcelo. This is the Marcelo team. This is the Marcelo. This is the Marcelo this. Because I got them all for Marcelo Garcia. But, you try to like pay it back, pay it forward to people that showed you this stuff. And now it's not your creation, but it's your adaptation of teaching the creation that was taught to you. And then you can give them a little bit of a high five in there, like the Jeremy Horn triangle. I always call it Jeremy Horn triangle. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, right? They continue evolves, it continue not gets recreated, but there's different flavors. We all add little pieces. We contribute to it, and it continues growing. And I think that's what's phenomenal. That's why I love it. This is why I love it. Listen, we've been at this for over an hour, so we do want to wrap this up at some point. But before we do so, well, we have a question from our previous guest. And he didn't know that you will be answering it. So think of it as a question in blind.
Okay.
And Gary's going to take a quick lead on this, and it's going to create an
So this is.
I didn't get to tell any stories. I didn't get to say anything about Evan Tanner. Evan Tanner almost killing Lodenson Cade. I didn't get to talk about Evan Tanner and me driving to Vegas and sleeping outside of hotels, sleeping outside of casinos.
Hold on. Answer the question, and we're going to go to Evan Tanner. Hold on.
These episodes might go longer. So this is from Edgar Figeroa. And is there any truth that if you're good at sport jiu-jitsu, you would or should presumably be good in real self-defense situations?
100%, I believe that. 100%. The thing is this, most people don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
Most people have no idea about body mechanics, right? If you understand body mechanics well enough that you are a very good sport jiu-jitsu player, then as that fight takes place and you make contact, you will understand where to place yourself. Like, you probably will get the takedown. Like, if you pull guard all the time, trust me, you don't have to pull guard against most of these people. They don't have the balance. They don't have the understanding of man, you could probably just grab them around the waist, body gut wrench them to the ground, slowly control them, because you got to make your jiu-jitsu much more fundamental. Mm-hmm. You can't make the problem with jiu-jitsu, sports jiu-jitsu, is that you expect that when I do something, I expect them to make a correction. When I do something, I expect them to change something, right? And there's several things that they can do to change it, which are the right answers. The person you're fighting against is going to have none of those answers.
Yep.
There's no way that person is going to respond the right way to when you go to chair sit, right? Let's say you go to chair sit and start beating on the guy's head like a bongo. Well, he might give his back. You know what I mean? And then he might, after he gives his back, he might keep spinning like an alligator. Well, you have to be aware of that kind of stuff and play kind of like, so here's the fight. You have to play you have to be like circling the globe of the fight. So like you're always on top. This person's doing crazy stuff and you're just controlling and staying in a dominant position. If you're good at sports jiu-jitsu, you will destroy 98% of the people out there, because most of those people are not trained. You've seen it. I mean, I feel bad that I've even seen this. So there's this bodybuilder dude that's challenging everybody, right? I don't know his name. He's friends with Joe Rogan
recent?
and he's friends with Joe Rogan. He wants to go against. Go ahead.
Is this the guy that just fought that other comedian that Rogan's always got on? The guy that used to be on the Goldbergs and stuff? Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Dude, he just wrestled the guy that was on Mad TV.
Yeah.
Right. And The Hangover.
But yeah.
And that guy, I mean, that guy's nothing. He's nothing. You know what I mean? Like that guy's, I don't believe that guy's doing jiu-jitsu a bunch. He talks more about anything else. He talks about like boxing all the time, right? Like, I don't watch too many podcasts. I see like shorts and stuff. But he almost swept him twice and then got on top at the end. Mm-hmm. This is a monster of a human being that he's going against. We're not even talking about most monster of human beings. We're talking about regular human beings that maybe go to the gym, that maybe have a beer on the weekend or every other weekend. You're going to destroy that person. That person does not understand body mechanics is everything. Once you understand how to manipulate or how to move with somebody's body and how you understand those small things, I don't care. It's over. It's done.
Awesome. I love it. All right. I want to hear Evan Tanner sleeping outside hotels.
I'll give you one Evan Tanner story. So, Evan is in kind of like a bad spot. He's drinking a lot. We were living in his house, and we decided to go to Vegas. And we went to Vegas, and we're like getting ready for my fight, which wasn't the best place to get ready for my fight because there's a lot of things going on with him, at least mentally. But we were at a place where this guy was like where he injured his dog. Like he like kicked his dog or something like that. And we're like, dude, I can't be here around this shit, dude. I'm getting ready for a fight. I have a fight in a month. I don't want to be here. And so he's like, yeah. Well, I'll get a hold of somebody. So we get in the car. I think he's like calling people and trying to figure out where we can go. And then we end up staying. So we've done this before, but we ended up staying outside of like a cheap motel pool because that's where it was the coolest in Vegas. But let me tell a better story. This story is even funnier. Is that so me and Evan, we go out. We're in Oregon. We're out drinking. We end up getting invited to like this girl's like 23rd birthday party. I'm sober like since 2014, so I'm always a bad drunk. Like I'm like who? Somebody's like they're singing Happy Birthday. Everybody get inside, and then somebody goes to me like, hey, we're singing Happy Birthday. I'm like, I don't give a. And then the girl comes out there and she's like, that's my best friend. You don't talk about my best friend like that, right? You know, and she's like, you're gonna have to go. And they make me and Evan leave. We're walking. We have no idea where we are. I'm just following him, and he's pissed off. He's like, you couldn't just sing Happy Birthday to the girl. You know, God damn it. And I'm like, he's like, you know, we wouldn't be stuck here. And then we're up and down. And then I remember Evan going like, hey, let's just sit here for a little bit and rest. We're in a park. I end up waking up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, birds chirping. There's like a lawnmower going. I'm laying in the middle of a park and I look around and I'm looking for Evan and I can't see Evan anywhere. I'm like, this motherfucker left me in a park and I don't even know where I am. So I start walking. I see a water tower that I recognize. And, as I see the water tower that I recognize, I'm coming around this side and I'm pissed. I'm like stupid bastard, you know, like Evan, you know, like I'm going to my apartment. All of a sudden we see each other from opposite sides of the street. He went around one way. I went around the other way and we're like meeting on the same street. And we're like looking at each other. And it's like, you know, we get to each other. I was like, why the fuck did you leave me? He's like, why'd you leave me? I was like, I got up and there was nobody there. He's like, I got up and there was nobody there. And we're, you know, like we just spent the night outside. I'm like, where the hell were we? He's like, we slept at a park. I'm like, why did we sleep at a park? I said, because I said it was a good idea. And that was that was a funny one. Definitely staring at each other and on opposite sides of the road. I'm like, where's this bastard been all night?
It's funny to me that he's the level-headed one, that you were the one that got kicked out of the party.
I got kicked out. I'm not a good, so he's a friendly drinker. I say things I shouldn't say when I drink. So that's why I don't so
drink. Were you saying we shouldn't invite you for a beer? That's what you said.
No, I can't. Listen, I haven't drank since 2014. I think I like drinking way more than anybody likes being around me drinking.
Oh, fair enough.
That's it. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, I can't wait to see a little bit of beer in you. It's like, no, you don't want to see that, man. He's not a cool guy. He's not that, like, if you're a 19-year-old kid that wants to start shit, then yeah, but I'm more on why I don't want to be that person anymore. So I stayed pretty, I'm happy with I don't even do anything recreational right now. So we'll have to find something. Wow. Jiu-jitsu.
Stick with that.
Stick with that. Yeah, that's right. All right. Listen, let's what a great conversation it was. Let's slowly wrap this up.
Sure.
First of all, I do appreciate your time. I do appreciate the fact that you are open-minded to talk about a lot of those things, and the stories are amazing. And I do think that a lot of that philosophy that carries with you that will easily translate to anybody who might be listening to this. And, you know, we all continue training jiu-jitsu and continue embracing this beautiful thing that I think many of them out there love it. Gary?
Yeah, thanks so much. It was funny. I was talking to Edgar, who asked you the question before we did this today. And he was like, oh, I love that guy's stuff. He's like, there's always something that you can take away
Cool.
from it. So, so thank you so much for today. It was a really good time. And thanks for your content too. Appreciate it.
Before we officially wrap this up, where can anybody find you? If anybody wants to connect with you, one-to-one, are you websites, social media? Are you available?
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I have my Instagram, which is at Malachy Friedman. I'm trying to get my YouTube up now that I want one of those little silver YouTube play things. Like I want to get that. Now I'm
you
jealous.
Be like the cool kids, huh?
Yeah, I want one of those. Why should I didn't get anything for Instagram? Let me get something for I'm on TikTok, but I'm not really on TikTok. All my stuff just gets posted there. Mad Lab BJJ.com. That's my subscription site. It has all my instructionals on there. It has like over 1,000 edited videos, and I curate them and put them into collections at least once a week into something. And if you're an annual member, you get 2 free instructionals from me. So you get 2 free instructionals that I sell elsewhere. You become an annual member, and then you get all my stuff. Like basically, you're paying like really less than $15 a month to get an instructional every week. Then Facebook, I don't. My Facebook's a mess because I added too many people.
Facebook
other than that,
period.
It's a mess. So I would say Instagram, I respond to a bunch of stuff. YouTube, I'm trying to get up on that. Mad Lab BJJ, I have a forum on the Mad Lab BJJ where you can talk to me about techniques, instructionals, different stuff that I'm putting out there. Like you can even take my instructional, put it up there and ask a question about the instructional and the part. And so that's really cool about the forum on that. I also want to make sure that I thank people that help me, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Please.
Gameness, the Gameness guys have always been, loyal to me and have always helped me out. Maya, Metzger and those guys, if you're ever interested in, getting your school correct, Maya, MAIA, edge.com. And then 100%, this is not me bullshitting, but I get the gear for free. So it's not, I say gear. It's not steroids. It's, I get the bioprotein free. That's what I get. And if I didn't think bioprotein was working for me, I would just stop getting it for free. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, why would I want a whole bunch of free bioprotein if
it doesn't work?
If it doesn't work for me and I'm saying, hey, this works. It's because I like it and it actually works for me. So bioprotein, check those guys out. And then of course my students and my I love my students. I love my assistant coaches and everything like that. My wife, and I'm like saying it like I'm winning an Emmy. Thank you to my wife. And...
Wow.
Here, let me play some music. We'll play you off.
We'll include all the links in the show notes. So if you guys are interested in either connecting directly or getting some of the products, some of the instructionals, feel free to follow the links below, and we'll simply hook you up right there. All right. Cool. Let's wrap this up. Once again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your stories. Thank you for the conversation.
Thanks, man. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.